Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Hey, this is Peter Moriarty, and welcome back to Google Made Easy. I'm really excited to have you on today's episode because we are going to be covering how to set up and successfully use Google Drive, which is one of the apps that I use every day. And if you're not already using Google Drive, then this is going to be a game changer for you. I'm super excited to get started right away. So, a couple of quick things before we get started. Now, number one is we're going to get super practical in this session. Again, like we like to. So, about 15 minutes in, when we start getting into the practical stuff, that's when it's time to get out your laptop, follow along with us, and get some of this implemented. And number two, make sure you're continuing the conversation with the Business Blueprint community by using the hashtag Google Made Easy. And I'm around on that hashtag on Twitter and on Facebook. Make sure you're adding your comments, your questions, your criticisms, your feedback, everything you've got, send it at us on hashtag Google Made Easy. So in this episode, what we're going to be covering is Google Drive, what's the big idea, and why should you be using Google Drive? Now, we're going to start with the basics, like what is Google Drive and why is it fundamentally different to using a USB stick to store your files or leaving your files lying around on your computer, because we are not in the year 2000 anymore. We are working in the cloud and it's all very exciting, but there are different ways for us to work. We're going to look at things like, well, other applications like Dropbox and how do they compare to Google Drive and what's the right decision for you to make for your business. We'll be covering how to get Google Drive set up. So if you don't have a Google Drive account, we'll be going through the basics of how to get set up, how to get started from scratch if you haven't already started yet. And we'll go through the setting up of your folders. We'll go through getting your staff added to Google Drive. We'll go through organizing all your files. So if your files are in a mess right now, then we're going to have some strategies for getting them cleaned up and getting them organized. We're going to show you how to get the Google Drive Sync client installed on your computer so you can take your files wherever you go. And that also means that files that are sitting on your computer like PDFs and images and movies and whatnot, you can get those into Google Drive and securely backed up on the cloud. Very safe, very good idea. We're going to go through Selective Sync, which means that if you've got some computers that maybe have a smaller hard drive and you want to change how much data you're pushing down to that machine, we're going to show you some strategies around how you can manage your data and manage the larger files if you've got big files that you want to get backed up. And then we're going to go through how to add all of your documents into Drive. Should you convert your Microsoft documents over to Google Documents? How do you store them? How does it all work? What are the best practices? We'll be covering all of those. We will then jump into the very special world of Google Apps and Google Documents and Spreadsheets. So if you've never used Google Doc before, there's Google Documents and Google Spreadsheets and Google Slides. All of these new apps, which you might not have used before, we're going to be demoing them and showing you how you can get some really cool stuff happening with those. Finally, we're going to go through how to share your Google Drive setup, so the folders that you've created, the files that you've created with your team, so you can be doing business with them and getting your work done collaboratively and together. So let's get into it. This is Google Drive. I'm Peter Moriarty. This is Google Made Easy. Make sure you're on the hashtag, and we're going to jump right in to our demo. Let's go for it. So, what's the big idea behind Google Drive? What is Google Drive and how does this change the way that we work? If you think about how we used to use computers, go back 5, 10, 15 years, it used to be very kind of singular. Your computer was an island and the work that we did on that machine really kind of stayed on that machine. You know, you'd have your My Documents folder, and if you were good, you might be backing up to a hard drive, or you might even be storing things on a USB stick. The only problem with that is that if your computer died, or you dropped a glass of wine on it, as I've done sometimes, if the backup wasn't working that particular week, you had this problem of data loss. And I've had data loss before. Before I started working in the cloud, everybody's experienced it, and it really sucks because it might be memories, it might be our personal photos, it could be important business documents, it could be even customer information. That opens us up to risk of litigation and a whole bunch of scary stuff. So it's really important for us to be really, really mindful of where we're putting our files and making sure that where we store our files are actually well protected and safeguarded and secured. Now, think about if you have a business that's a bit more established and you might have a file server where you're storing your files, typically most kind of legacy file servers, the only way to access those is by remote dialing in when you're working from home. So you might be using something like remote desktop or a VPN to access your files. But again, that means that you need to invest in infrastructure and you need to make sure that a manual backup's happening. And that way of working is not the most efficient way that we can work. And Google Drive solves a lot of those problems. So what I'd like you to do is think of Google Drive a bit like a special cloud folder. This cloud folder you can put any of your files into, and they're automatically synchronized between all of your different devices. You may have used other file synchronization tools like Dropbox before that do something similar. Google Drive works in the same way. It's a cloud folder for us to store our files in, but we get that same folder across all of our devices. So what that might mean is when you're using your mobile phone, or maybe when you're accessing documents on a home computer as opposed to a computer sitting on your desk at work, you'll get the same experience and the access to the same files no matter where you're accessing those files and documents from. Furthermore, once we start getting a little bit more advanced, we're even able to share those files and those folders with our employees, with our other team members, with our partners, with our contractors, and even people outside of our business as well. So Google Drive is not only a safe place to store our files, which means that we don't run the risk of losing files and folders when they go missing from our computer, or if our computer breaks, but it also opens us up to collaborating with people within our business and outside the business as well. So what's exciting about Google Drive to me is it means that the computer that I'm working on is just that little bit less important for me getting my work done. I know that, if my machine is stolen or I lose it or I leave it on a train or maybe I accidentally run over it or something like that, it doesn't matter because any computer that I log into, I still have my Google Drive and I have all of my files and folders there available for me to access. So think of it like a virtual server that you can access at any time. Makes it nice and easy to get hold of all of your files and all of your documents. So let's talk about what's the big deal about Google Drive and why you might choose Google Drive over some of the alternatives that are available in the marketplace. Now, one of the most popular file synchronization tools is Dropbox. Dropbox came out about 5 years ago, and Dropbox was super popular and very quick to grow because it was so easy to get started and start using Dropbox, and it made it super easy for even mum or grandma to be able to download Dropbox, install it on their computer, and automatically start sharing folders and photos. It made it what's called consumerized to access cloud technology. And lots of people started with Dropbox to get their first foot in the door with cloud synchronization technology. Now, it only took a few years to catch up, but Google and Microsoft and Box and other vendors that brought out business file synchronization tools have all copied the same features of Dropbox, but built in much more business-like features into their applications. And I'm glad to say that using Google Drive is effectively the same as using Dropbox, although Google Drive has a bunch more business features that make it a better suited option for working in a business. Now, one of those features is the ability to expertly share your folders with your teams using group-based permissions. Now, in a small business, if it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people, it's easy to use something like Dropbox to collaborate. You share folders with a few people, you drop a file in, the file synchronizes across to your colleague's computer, and then everybody can work together. That's nice and easy and nice and simple. But what happens when a company has 20, 30, 40, 50, or even hundreds of employees? Dropbox, the permissions that are built into Dropbox start to reach their limits as they don't quite have the sophistication required for the intricacies of a business that is growing past just a couple of people. And that's where Google Drive, being tied to Google Apps for Work, your business identity, allows you to create business groups of employees and share folders in your Google Drive with those business groups. It's a much more sophisticated way of sharing, and it means that as your business grows and scales, you won't have a permissions nightmare on your hands when your Dropbox
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.